All right, let's get right into it. We're actually going to go on a bit of an adventure back in time. We're going to team up with one of the most famous scientists in history, a guy named Charles Darwin, to help him crack this massive mystery that he spent pretty much his whole life trying to figure out. So, you ready to play detective with us?
So first things first, let me ask you something. Have you ever just looked around, outside, and wondered why there are so many different kinds of animals and plants? I mean, why are there lions and tigers? How come we have these teeny tiny hummingbirds and then these massive ostriches? Or giant oak trees and little daisies? Well, that exact question, that's the puzzle that got this whole adventure rolling.
And here he is. This is our lead detective, Charles Darwin himself. He actually called this question, where all these different living things came from, that mystery of mysteries. And he was totally determined to solve it, but not with a magnifying glass or anything like that. Nope. He did it just by looking really, really carefully at the world around him, searching for clues.
Okay, so when you think of Darwin, you probably think of him sailing to some faraway, mysterious island to find his first big clue, right? And yeah, he totally did that. But his first major breakthrough, the first big piece of the puzzle, it actually came from a place that's a lot closer to home. It came from looking at animals that people keep as pets or on farms.
What he noticed was pretty interesting. He saw that pigeons, the ones people raised, came in all these wild shapes, sizes, and colors. Way more variety than you'd ever see in their wild relatives. And just think about dogs for a second. You've got tiny little Chihuahuas and then these enormous Great Danes. They look completely different, but they're all dogs, right? This massive variety in domesticated animals, that was Darwin's first really big clue.
So then he started thinking about horses. Picture this. On one hand, you've got a dray horse. I mean, this thing is basically a walking tractor, just bred to be super, super strong. And then on the other hand, you have a racehorse, which is built like a rocket, all for speed. So how in the world did one type of animal end up looking so incredibly different? He knew it wasn't magic. There had to be an explanation.
And here's what Darwin came up with. He said, nature gives successive variations. Now, that sounds a little fancy, but all it really means is that in any group of animals, there are always these little random differences, right? Some might be a tiny bit faster or a little stronger or have a slightly different pattern. Then he said, man adds them up. What he meant was that people would see these differences, pick the ones they liked, and then only let those specific animals have babies.
So you can really break it down into 3 simple steps. First, you've got the variation, just those natural little differences that pop up. Then comes the choice. That's when people step in and pick the animals with the traits they want, the strongest horse or the friendliest dog. And finally, there's the breeding. They make sure only those chosen animals have babies. And if you do that over and over again for a long, long time, all those tiny little changes start to add up, and boom, you get a whole new breed.
All right, so that's clue number 1. People can intentionally change animals over time. Got it. Now, for clue number 2, we're going to leave the farm and head out into the wild, because Darwin realized that out in nature, there's this constant kind of invisible battle happening for every single living thing.
There's this great quote from Darwin that I think really captures it. It makes you realize that even when nature looks super peaceful and happy, you hear birds singing, those very same birds are in a life or death struggle to find food. And at the exact same time, they're desperately trying not to become food for something else. It's kind of intense when you think about it.
And Darwin had a name for this. He called it the struggle for existence. But, and this is important, it doesn't always mean a literal physical fight. Not at all. A tree in a super crowded forest is struggling against other trees to get enough sunlight. A cactus in the middle of the desert is struggling to find enough water. It's really about the constant challenge that every single living thing faces just to stay alive and, have a family.
And here's why that struggle is so intense. Just think about it. A single frog can lay thousands of eggs. A maple tree can drop thousands and thousands of seeds. If every single one of those survived, the whole world would be buried in frogs and trees in no time. But of course, they don't. Most of them don't make it. In fact, only a tiny, tiny fraction survives. And that was Darwin's second giant clue.
Okay, so the clues are all laid out now. Clue number 1. People can select certain traits and basically design new kinds of animals. Clue number 2. Nature is this constant struggle for existence, where way more are born than can ever survive. With those 2 big ideas in his head, Darwin was finally ready to crack the mystery of mysteries.
And his solution, his big idea, was absolutely brilliant. He called it natural selection. And the idea is actually pretty simple when you break it down. If a living thing happens to be born with some small difference, a variation, that helps it out in that big struggle for life, maybe it makes it a little bit faster or gives it slightly better camouflage, well then it's just got a better chance of surviving long enough to have its own babies.
Now just look at these steps. Do they look kind of familiar? They should. It's the exact same three-step process we talked about with the farm animals. You've got variation, then you've got some kind of selection, and then you have the results being passed on. But, and this is the genius part, instead of a person doing the picking and choosing, it's the struggle for life itself that does the selecting. It's the environment that decides which variations are helpful. And when this happens over a very, very, very long time, that's how you get brand new species.
And this really puts into perspective just how huge this idea is. Darwin realized that this force, this natural selection, was way, way more powerful than anything humans could ever do. I mean, think about it. We've been breeding dogs for what, a few thousand years? Nature has been doing this, has been shaping life for millions and millions of years. And it's working on every single living thing, every second of every day. It's on a whole other level.
So there you have it. Darwin solved the mystery. Natural selection is the answer to why there are so many different kinds of life on Earth. But his idea, it gives us something even bigger than that. It gives us a totally new way of seeing the world and our connection to absolutely everything in it.
And what it all boils down to is something, well, it's just amazing. It means that if you go back far enough in time, everything is related. I mean, everything. You, me, the birds outside your window, the fish in the ocean, that big tree down the street, we all share common ancestors. We're all part of this one gigantic, incredible family tree that's been growing and branching out for billions of years. It's wild. And I think it's best to just end with Darwin's own words, because he didn't see this idea as something dark or grim at all. He saw it as being full of grandeur and wonder. It's a view of life that shows how, from such a simple beginning, life has just blossomed into the endless, beautiful, and wonderful forms that we see all around us today. And the amazing part is, it's still happening. It's still changing, still evolving right now.